So, folks, with the announcement that 4 CARICOM countries are set to launch full free movement by October 1, economist Dr. Damien King joins us this morning to break down what this could mean for regional travel, for trade, and for labour, and what Jamaica stands to gain or lose as it works towards implementation. Morning, Dr. King. How are you, sir?
Morning. I'm well, thank you.
Great to have you with us this morning. I suspect free movement is more than just we don't need a visa.
Right.
It's more than that.
Yeah, it means that once you have a job, then within any of the countries, the Caribbean countries that sign up for free movement, then you can move to that country and take up the job.
This says 4 Caribbean countries have signaled their intention to allow freedom as of October 1. Is that the same thing as mutually inclusive to?
Yes.
Done. It's done.
Well, the thing about CARICOM is that it's not done until it's done.
Yeah, right.
And unfortunately, a lot of decisions and intentions are announced at CARICOM heads of government meetings that actually end up not coming to pass, not being ratified, legislation not put in place. But with that caveat, we hope it happens on October 1st, and we hope other countries join in as well. One of the difficulties with Caribbean integration, which we've been talking about since the 1960s, so that we can have, sort of treat it like it's one larger economy than a bunch of tiny economies. One of the problems with it is actually structural, logistical almost, that to be able to move your goods around within the Caribbean is difficult and expensive because all the individual markets are small and it's costly to ship things around in the Caribbean. So free movement of labor actually is an easier way to integrate the markets than free movement of goods and services.
What obtains now, Dr. King?
Well, now for most countries, you don't need a visa, but you can't just move to a country and take a job and start to work. You need to apply to that country's authorities for a work permit. And in many of the countries, as is the case in Jamaica, the work permit process is long and tedious and inefficient and costly. And given that Jamaica is now experiencing a labor shortage, that companies are struggling to find new hires, this is something we need to move forward with.
But would you still not need a work permit, though? I mean, even if there's free movement, I can't just put up my hand and say, all right, Barbados, I hear say you need a presenter run into...
Well, I don't know how each of those 4 countries are going to implement it, but the idea is that it's automatic.
So you wouldn't
there's no process that you have to go through.
Barbados, Belize, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Dominica. I find it interesting. The first question you asked is also very instructive because, and the point you made, we're having a labor shortage. You see this redounding to our benefit as opposed to putting us in further dire straits there, Doc? Because I feel like some of our regional people would want some of us in their workforce as well. I see you smiling.
I'm so glad you asked that question.
I'm so glad I asked that question too. If you're glad, I'm glad.
So I want you to imagine a hypothetical scenario. Imagine that people who were born in Manchester could only work in Manchester.
Okay.
And people who were born in Kingston could only work in Kingston. No matter what your skills are, no matter how productive you are, if there's a job in Kingston that would make the business better and make you better off, you can't take it because there's a barrier between the two. Would that make Manchester better off?
No.
Would that make Kingston better off?
Not at all.
Exactly. So free movement of labor benefits both economies and both the company and the individual. So there's no reason not to have free movement of labor. When we don't have it, anywhere in the world, it's a political issue, not an economic issue.
But don't you run the risk of the same thing we're talking about? Let me use sport. In England, I know in England, to get a work permit, so Damien King is a goalkeeper, the only way you can go up there is if them don't have no goalkeeper in England, they can keep like you. So don't you run the risk of me going to Barbados or whichever country and taking a job from someone who can do what I'm doing and is from that country. You don't run that
but
risk.
If you can do it better, Barbados is better off and you're better off.
But
because you can do it better. And if that happens in both directions, then both countries are better off in any case. Again, I use the example of Manchester and Kingston.
Yeah.
One intuitive way to think about trade and investment policy is to apply that same thought experiment I just did. Imagine it within the same country. And when you do that, you realize that national borders are arbitrary.
What do you mean by that?
In other words, we end up with national borders only because that happens to be the size of the island. But if the island were twice as big, we wouldn't slice it down the middle and put a national border and put customs and restrictions and visas and all of those things between.
So you're saying there's a win-win thing here. There's no downside to this, is what you're saying?
The Caribbean needs to move to full free movement of labor as fast as possible.
You're saying there's no downside to this?
I'm saying there's no downside.
Okay, can I ask again? I'm not pushing back because I don't like to push back on Dr. King. But if we're already hemorrhaging teachers, hemorrhaging nurses,
yes,
losing so many of our very skilled professionals, do we not run a greater risk now of bottoming out if we open? I mean, there are other Caribbean neighbors who are doing much better or better economically than we are. Maybe not many, but we run the risk of people running off to greener pastures there too. That doesn't...
You know, people who are born in Puerto Rico can move to the US and work.
Yeah, I know.
The US, Puerto Rico has a standard of living that is 3 times ours. How come they haven't bottomed out by free movement of labor?
Dr. King, I don't even know if you could answer this because you can't think for them, but if this is so wonderful, why only 4 countries have said, well, our Prime Minister said he's on line with that, but why not everybody jump in and say, yeah?
Well, you know, a lot of economic policy is not intuitive, and the issues are always political. So you're going to have interests you're going to have pockets of interest that might be harmed by it. And those people often have political voices. So there's no policy that doesn't have a vested interest, and those who stand to lose are going to make a lot of noise about it. Gotcha.
Okay. So it's kind of like the stone throw in the pig pen is the one that squealed it out.
There you go. Next time I'll use that.
What other implications are there for us, positive and negative, if you see any? Because you are on X quite often. You have a presence there, and oftentimes we see... Yes, I agree. We see folks who complain about the cost of travel. If I want to go to Florida, my ticket is $200. If I want to go to in the region, it's $1,000. And this cannot be right for us to be traveling to our Caribbean neighbors. Is that likely to change?
Well, it's not likely to change because, again, the problem is structural. It's not that there is a sort of a coalition that is keeping it high for artificial reasons. You know, air travel is expensive, fuel is expensive, and the amount of traffic between Jamaica and the Eastern Caribbean is not as great as the amount of traffic between Jamaica and Florida and the US.
Gotcha.
Okay? So economies of scale come into play, and it's even worse for shipping. And as I said, that is the thing that is the obstacle to deeper Caribbean integration in terms of moving goods and services.
Having said that, do you see the rest of the Caribbean jumping on board in this?
You know, the case for economic integration, economies grow faster and are more prosperous the larger is the economic space. So the case for deeper Caribbean integration is powerful. And Caribbean countries have repeatedly and consistently not taken that advantage. Okay, that is the reason why the Federation broke up in the first place. We would be more prosperous now if we had that larger economic space that the Federation would have given us. And that would have come with free movement of labor.
Yeah. Good to see you, sir.
Always good to be here.
Please tell Brandon congratulations to me.
I will.
I think he's doing brilliantly.
Tell us what Brandon is doing.
Big time. He's been the biggest batsman in the series so far, both Test and T20.
Indeed, I'll pass it on.
Yeah,
thanks,
please.
Curtis.
Thank you for coming, sir. Economist Dr. Damian King.
After the break, we're getting an understanding of what trauma-informed care is. We're right back with that after this.